Today, we're going to give you the best talents and combos for Xiang Yu, who is arguably the very best cavalry commander in Rise of Kingdoms. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and this video has been sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And I have got to say, since seeing this new commander hit the game, he has been totally game-changing. He is phenomenal for rallies. He's phenomenal in the open field, and I'm going to make the argument that he is probably the #1 Cav commander in the game right now. So in this video, we're going to give you everything you need to know about Xiang Yu to start kicking butt. As always, there are timestamps in the description of my video, so you can jump to whichever portion you're most interested in. We're going to start by reviewing the skills that make this commander top tier. Then we'll give you the builds that play into the strengths of the skills on the commander. And last but not least, we'll give you some pairings that we've observed as the very top tier. Now, the thing that makes Xiang Yu so nuts, and I've got to say, it's either Xiang Yu or Xiang Yu. I've heard a couple pronunciations here. Let me know down below in the comments if you've got the definitive answer here. The thing that makes this commander totally insane is that he's a Cav commander with a fan AoE damage effect. It's easy to hit lots of targets. Cavalry up to this point have really not had great, easy to use area of effect damage. Yeah, William has area of effect damage, but it's like the itty-bittiest, strangest rectangle shape that hits a couple targets in big brawls, but this, easy to get value with the AoE damage. But the thing is that it's not just an AoE damage Cav commander. This AoE damage is doing a defense reduction to the target of 30%. That is insane. Now, the damage will scale down very quickly. You're getting 25% reduced damage for each additional target you hit, but you just don't care. You're using this commander to debuff as many marches as possible, get in a ton of damage, and that is what makes him so strong. The thing about Xiang Yu is that he is doing AoE debuffs, and that is a counterpoint to William, who you might have argued was one of the better cavalry commanders in the game, in fact, possibly #1, except William is doing AoE buffing. Okay, he's going to be buffing nearby marches with defense and rage. Now, the reason I'm making the argument that Xiang Yu is the #1 cavalry commander is that he's usable in the field, and he's a top-tier commander for rallies, whereas William, also usable in the field, is not necessarily top tier for rallies. You could run a Xiang Yu rally with several different secondary commanders, but you really couldn't run a William rally without certainly having a Xiang Yu primary. So that's why I'm saying he is such a strong commander. You can use him for rallies, and you can use him in the field. Now, what makes him strong in the field is that he's getting 40% attack, which is nice. He's got some march speed that's going to stack when you're getting hit, which is also really quite nice. And he has got a 30% damage boost. You're going to get this over time. It's cavalry damage that gets boosted. He's going to lose march speed and gain cav damage. It can stack 6 times, 5% damage per stack, so 30%. That is a lot of damage boost. He's also reducing the rage requirement by 50. From this 4th skill, which we need to talk about. The active skill has a lower rage requirement by 100. It's 900 rage instead of 1,000. And right over here, you're reducing it by another 50. So 850 rage requirement to fire off active skills is insane. If you watched my video about accessories, and I'll have a card up in the top where we go very in-depth on things like the Horn of Fury, you know that the more rage you generate, the more insane rage effects become. Okay, the shorter your skill cycle becomes, the faster and faster and faster your rage engine is becoming, and the higher % damage boost you're getting by firing off skills a turn sooner. It's kind of easy to understand, right? If I take a 5-turn skill cycle and now generate so much rage that I am doing it every 4 turns, that's like a 20-25% damage boost, because I'm firing off my active skills so much faster. And I know that's an oversimplification. There's normal attacks in there. There's counterattacks. But you're firing off your skills much, much, much faster. Okay, 20% faster. If you go from like a 10 turn cycle to a 9 turn cycle, I mean, yeah, you're like 10% faster than you were before. So there's a huge difference between having a fast skill cycle that gets even faster, and that is also what makes this commander insane. P.S. If you're getting value from this video, throw a like on here and consider subscribing. It's free to you and supports the channel. I appreciate it. I will say there's a couple things that don't make this commander insane. What I shared is what does it, but the expertise skill is honestly not all that important. 10% more skill damage, it's nice. Not backbreaking. If you get a rage buff for more than one turn, yeah, okay, it's nice. You get 10% more skill damage for 3 seconds, that's nice. It might line with your active skills, it might not. It's fine. Triggers at most every 5 seconds. Honestly, not a crucial expertise skill. It really isn't. If we look over here at the third skill, when you're attacking governors' cities or strongholds, good for Ark of Osiris, irrelevant for most people most of the time, though. You get a 5% damage boost. That's nice. Chance to do a 400 damage factor. It's nice. I'm just mentioning all of this because you could use this commander as a 5/5/1/1. And obviously, they're not as good as their maxed out counterpart, but you've already got kind of a lot of the value as a 5/5/1/1. And really, I will say, the 30% damage boost that you get over time here, this is good for extended fights. Every time you're using an active skill, you're getting an extra stack of damage. You get an additional stack if you're surrounded, which is probably a bad situation for you anyways. But this is something that's going to stack up really fast in the open field, but especially for rallies, obviously very crucial to have the commander maxed. But I'll just say that if you could get to a 5/5/1/5, you'd be in really great shape. And unlike other commanders like Xiang Yu, where the city-hitting skill is not the third skill, but the second skill, it is a lot easier to get this commander to a pretty good spot because you can max 2 of the important skills guaranteed. And then you're just kind of gambling between these last 2 skills over here. So now that I've really preached to you how good I think this commander can be, the only reason I haven't personally maxed him is because I just don't have that many wheel commanders to spin anymore. So I'm enjoying picking him up from the Wheel of Fortune, which is where you can unlock him. And then I'll have to, at some point, decide to bite the bullet and use universals. You know, my personal investment strategy in commanders is to wait right until we're in a KVK and the latest and greatest commanders have landed in the game. We know what the meta is and just make really smart investments with full information rather than invest in a commander early and maybe by the time you're actually using them in a KVK or something that really matters, they may not be as important anymore or the very best thing to be using at all. So if we get a look at the talents, I'm going to show you the one and only build that I think everybody should be using. And I'm going to show it to you on my con because although Xiang Yu does have the Conquering Tree, he's also got Cav and Skill, and Cav and Skill are where I put all of the points. The build that I would recommend is right here. This is it. It's so clean. It's so easy. I'd go all in on the skill tree to get Feral Nature. As I was describing earlier, decreasing your skill cycle by 1 turn, which is what Feral Nature should pretty much do in almost all cases where it triggers, is a very big deal for a commander like Xiang Yu, who's already generating lots of rage. As I described, that % damage boost from reducing by a turn is way, way better for a commander like Xiang Yu, because he's already firing so fast. But he's also a bit of a glass cannon, which is why I really like, in the Cavalry tree, picking up Emblazoned Shield to reduce the skill damage you take by 12%. We have got to give you a little bit more tankiness here, because otherwise you will just explode when they focus you. We also get a little bit of health and march speed along the way, which is really quite ideal. Little extra boost on cavalry damage to archers, which I think is pretty solid. There's a lot of archers running around the field these days. 9% is a lot of damage boost. These are, however, 3 points of flex. If you really didn't think you were fighting archers, you could move them around. And I'll show you one place you could drop a few points if you really wanted to. In addition, we pick up Undying Fury. I want just as much rage as I can possibly generate. Along the way, a little bit of cav attack, and also a little bit of boost to your normal attack. Honestly, you could make an argument that shaving off these points over here might be worth doing. It would free up for you 7 points. You might say, Chisgule, I already have so much rage with this build. It's a lot of control. I don't need normal attack, counterattack damage. Like, I don't care about that because this commander is all about skill damage. And you wouldn't be wrong. So if you wanted to shave off a few of those points and go in the direction of being a little more tanky, there are some points you could put into the conquering tree that we do need to talk about. Now, I'll show you the conquering tree points that I would use here, and it's these 7 points. Really, it's all about Buckler Shield. Reduce the counterattack damage you take by 9%. This is good if you think that you're often dealing damage to people who aren't targeting you back. So if you wanted to have slightly less rage production, slightly less damage out, in exchange for 9% counterattack damage taken reduction, I think that would be pretty reasonable. Along the way, you get 1.5% attack and also another 0.5% over there. So 2% attack, sure. It's not bad. It's okay. I think this is a reasonable swap, but we're now way into the realm of micro-optimization with your points. I personally think that the first build I showed you right over here is really kind of the way to go. Now, there are some other changes you could make, and you'd have to do some testing to see if you really thought this was better. But here is a version of the build that's a little bit different. In this version, I decided to go all in on the cavalry tree, which I think is kind of a weird choice for this commander, specifically because, as I was describing, that rage engine gets a little bit out of control, which is a good thing. You want that. And the other thing I'll say is that this build really favors being in short combats. You get into combat very quickly, and this is true of the open field, right? You fight for a little bit, then you back off. And the thing that's weird about that is that it's a little bit of anti-synergy with the strategy of this commander, who is going to get more and more stacks of damage for every active skill that you're using. You want to get in fights and stay in fights for a while so you get that 30% damage boost. So there's a little bit of an anti-synergy going on with how open field might realistically be working, and some of Xiang Yu's kit, it's still absolutely phenomenal. And you could use this build, okay? And I've gone and I picked up just a little bit of extra march speed over here. Just a little bit extra. You could shave off these points if you wanted and put them somewhere else. You could even shave off enough points to get that counterattack damage taken reduction from the conquering tree. There's 4 points over here, plus the 3 points for Undying Fury. You could make that happen. But I don't think that a lower rage-producing build really makes sense for Xiang Yu. You really want to fire off the active skill as frequently as possible, debuff everything, and do lots of damage, and get those stacks of cav damage. That, to me, feels like where you want to be. This is, hands down, the build I would be using. But now let's talk about the pairs I would be using. This commander is exceptional not only because his skills are amazing, talent trees are totally great, but also because the number of commanders you can pair him with, it's truly astounding. I'm going to start with what I think is probably the #1 pair for this commander, for Xiang Yu, which is going to be Chandragupta. And this is a legendary pairings, okay? The reason I like Chandragupta is that he gives you just a little bit of tankiness. He's got 20% cav health, and Xiang Yu needs the tankiness. Together, they're going to do just a ton of damage. There's also a health and defense reduction on the target from Chandragupta's 3rd skill that is quite strong. I actually really like this pair, and it is arguably one of the very top rally combos in Rise of Kingdoms as of this very moment. The other commander you could use if you wanted to move away from the realm of debuffing the target, which is what your XY Chandragupta combo is going to do, and you wanted to have also some more sustain, but try to tap into the fact that, there is that expertise skill on XY, where if you generate extra rage, you're going to get some extra skill damage. If your William wasn't deployed somewhere else on the battlefield, then you could pair him as a secondary to XY. Now, the advantage of that is that you're going to have a ton of damage, nice march speed boost, and when you hit multiple targets, you're going to get some rage gen, you're going to get some defense, which is quite nice. In fact, if you hit any target, you get the increased defense for 3 seconds, which is pretty good. It's not as good as the all-the-time health you get from Chandragupta, but it's still pretty good. The extra rage gained here is nice. I mean, obviously really important. So if you were going to run one cavalry pair only, either Chandragupta as a secondary to XY or William as a secondary to XY would be a great choice. However, if what you wanted to do was have multiple pairs, I would pair Saladin with William, and I would pair XY with Chandragupta. The other advantage I'll just shout out for William is that you could run a 5-5-5-1 William, and that would be quite exceptional as well. Max is obviously better, but 5-5-5-1 would work. Whereas Chandragupta as a commander, you really do need to max if you're going to use him. The next commander we've got to get a look at, which would be probably the third commander I would look to for a secondary to Xiang Yu, is going to be Saladin. You could run a Saladin 5-5-5-1. Very strong, though. Adds just a ton of tankiness, which Xiang Yu really, really needs. 30% skill damage taken reduction and 20% counterattack damage taken reduction is massive. I really like these paired together. I think it's quite strong. I think it'd work very well. And even as a 5-5-5-1 Saladin, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Now, there are other Cav commanders we, of course, need to talk about. The early game commanders, Double C. You're going to be a little bit of a glass cannon. There's a nice little heal in here, but reducing your defense by 10%, it feels like a very steep cost for a Xiang Yu pairing. I wouldn't recommend it. You could do it. I think it would be fine. If you're in the early game, that would be fine. You've just entered Season of Conquest, and that's who you have. Okay. But I think there are other better pairings. Minamoto, I think, is a really solid pair. I mean, the Rage Engine on this damage factor is really, really good. The Warlord debuff on Minamoto is actually very strong. 10% chance to increase the damage taken by the target by 30% for 3 seconds. Woo! So now with the pairing of XY and Minamoto, you are reducing their defense and you're making them take 30% more damage. It's strong. Not as strong as the other commanders we've already looked at, but still strong. On the topic of still strong, Khan. You know, you'd think that this would be the most insane pairing, but from what I've heard of people that use it, it's just not. The march speed reduction when you're getting hit, combined with both Khan and XY, reducing your march speed when you're in combat, is fairly backbreaking. Reducing your rage by another 100 is pretty insane, but I've heard that it's just not as good as some of the other combos that we were describing, and it's just because it's too much glass cannon, okay? A lot of damage, not a lot of, in fact, not really any defensive capability. It just doesn't quite cut it, even though it's still pretty solid damage, and if you had them, you could pair them together, and you'd still probably be quite happy. I just generally think that Khan is not a great investment these days, and XY, I mean, I heard somebody say, I forget who it was, I'd love to give him credit, but somebody said, like, man, XY just seems like the Khan 2.0, and yeah, it really does. Everything that Khan doesn't do, with the exception of tankiness, you are getting from the XY, and it is sort of interesting, like, they're both reducing your rage requirement, but eating a serious march speed reduction, which is, I just think it's interesting they both do that. If we look at one other commander that we need to talk about, okay, and I think this is going to be one of those commander pairings that is probably shockingly good, it's Takeda as a secondary to XY. I know that sounds weird, but if you're in the open field, let me tell you, Takeda really wanted a rage engine. Attila Takeda's great, but Attila never had the rage engine that Takeda really wanted. Why is that? First of all, the active skill applies a debuff. That debuff, of course, is going to make you do some extra damage, but also the expertise skill over here makes it so that you do 30% increased damage. All troops with the burning effect take 30% increased damage from normal attacks. That's a debuff. That means everybody hitting the target are going to do 30% more normal attack damage? Woo, that's really good. That's a really, really good debuff onto the target. Okay, you're increasing your uptime of that debuff for targets you're swarming. This is kind of a big deal. This is a big, big deal. Also, you have your third skill over here tied into healing. So you're going to get your healing much more frequently. For open field, I honestly think that Takeda could be one of the very best secondaries if you're getting focused a lot, because also he offers a ton of tankiness. Honestly, the Takeda could be one of those surprising combos that we just need to play around with and kind of see how it performs. But I think it could be shockingly efficient in a KVK situation where what you care about is that efficiency. And so for someone like me who doesn't have Chandragupta, I'm not using Attila Takeda. I could go with an XY Takeda march on the field and a Saladin William march. That lets me have 2 marches of cavalry that are both very, very strong. And I really do wonder if this tankiness from Takeda could do the job. The final Cav commander that I just don't think makes sense as a pairing is Attila. Attila reduces the skill damage you take and deal, and it's that and deal part that really is concerning to me. Troops led by this commander deal 30% reduced skill damage. Ew. This is not, I think, where you want to be. I don't think that makes sense as a pairing. Attila and Takeda are really the pair to me that makes the most sense when you put them together. That makes sense. But for Attila, I don't think XY is the jam. There are a few commanders that I feel like have been somewhat underutilized to pair with XY. One of them is for city rallies. I wonder if Mehmed wouldn't be a better choice than Chandragupta. Haven't ever seen a rally with XY Mehmed. This dude is designed to just smash the heck out of cities. I would be really eager to see how that pair performs in a top-tier situation. He increases your skill damage by 20%. He does outrageous amounts of skill damage to cities from multiple skills. And XY is going to boost your skill damage. I mean, I would be very eager to see that combo hit a city and how it did. I think that is probably one of the more underutilized combos. And of course, for players that had other commanders that, like, I don't know. I don't think we really should be talking about Moctezuma or Lu Bu. Like, these are probably not the sorts of pairs you're looking for. But I will point out, just for giggles, okay, that if you did use Lu Bu as a secondary to XY, you hit 3 targets. What does the expertise skill do here? You're going to reduce the defense by 50%. Okay, so the damage factor is low. The damage factor is definitely low. But, man, you're going to be reducing the defense by 30%, and then you're going to overwrite it with 3 seconds of reduction by 50%. That is a lot of defense reduction on those targets. But the damage boost for cities, it's just, I don't know. I don't think Lu Bu is actually a thing. Let's just be real. XY Lu Bu is not a thing. We've gone over the combos that I think make the most sense. If you're investing in XY, I think you can do so with confidence. I still would advise that you probably wait until we see new commanders that arrive into the game, and if XY is no longer what you would want to do, but it feels unlikely that that would be the case. AoE Cav commanders are something that are very unusual in this game. So Xiang Yu seems like he'll be here to stay. But let me know what you think down below in the comments. Is this a commander you could invest in right now? And for at least until a new Cav cycle shows up, you could feel probably pretty good, at least for open field, that he'll hold his value. For rallies, that's a different story. You just never know when a new commander lands what the scene could look like. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor, throw a like on here and consider subscribing for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos that help you get value and smash your enemies. And if you're looking for more guides on cavalry pairings, I'll have a card up in the top giving you detailed information. Tap that info button for the very best Cav pairs in Rise of Kingdoms. Until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.